Welcome guys back to another episode of the Whiskey Diaries. I'm going to be your host, Martin Lang, and we're sitting here at Death and Taxes. Today we're going to be talking about Bruichladdich, a very, very special place in my heart. This distillery is absolutely stunning and they do a very unique style of whiskey. Now, the story of this Bruichladdich, they started in 1881 by a couple of brothers called the Harvey brothers. They had a lot of experience with distilleries, going back until all the way back to 1777. They created the distillery from scratch. It's one of the first distilleries in Ireland that was actually made from scratch compared to the other old distilleries that they were actually made out of old farms and so on. So they created the distillery from scratch using all the rocks and stones from the actual ocean. They created the distillery in the most western point of Islay, that is actually close to Porsche A Lot. Now the distilleries, the still themselves were created with really, really long neck, which it was very different for the time. At the time, all the stills that were used in different distilleries were actually a little bit fatter and shorter, and this created a very unique spirit. Now, the brothers ran the distillery until the basically 1930s, 1940s. After that, the distillery went into a sort of fire. Then they kept changing ownership until 1994. In 1994, it got bought up by a couple of private investors, and they hired Jim McEwen, which now he's considered an actual legend. He's one of the greatest distillers out there. He's retired now, but at that time he started basically Bruichladdich in 1994. He had the ethos of creating whiskey basically without computers, without any intervention. So Bruichladdich at the time was completely renovated. They pulled it apart and pulled it all back in, but maintaining all the equipment that was originally in there. This equipment is called the Victorian equipment. It comes from the Victoria era, and is actually everything is done by hand. They don't have any sort of computer. There's nothing there helping them out. Even when I went to the distillery in 2014, they showed me the actual the mill that grinds the flour, the barley into a grist, and they had a problem with the actual mill because it was so old that the engineer that actually built it died in around 1996 and 1994. So they had to hire an engineer to back engineer the actual mill to make sure to be able to fix it, because they had no one qualified enough to fix it because the mill was so old. They have one of the only 9-ton mash tuns left in Scotland or in the world as well. So they really, really take whiskey, making whiskey very seriously, to the point as well that everything that they do is local to Islay or local to Scotland as well. They don't get, because a lot of distilleries, they get a lot of grain from Germany or from other countries as well, that they produce mass amount of barley. Bruichladdich, they only source everything from Scotland, and also they do a lot of support for the farmers, and they grow a lot of organic. They have a couple of editions I'm going to talk to you about later on, in which everything is organic. It's an incredible distillery and it's absolutely stunning. So enough about the distillery. We're going to start talking about the whiskies now. Now the first one that we're going to do is basically the staple. It's called the Classic Laddie. I call it the Laddie Classic. That's me personally. It's basically a 7 to 8 year old whiskey, but it doesn't have an age statement on the bottle. They just like to keep it like that. I love the color. The color of the bottle, and it's one of the only bottles that I know that is actually painted. It's not it doesn't have a label or anything. It's actually amazing. So this is a 50% alcohol, and it gets aged in 100% American oak. They are one of the ethos of, as well as Bruichladdich, is being completely transparent in everything that they do. So much so that you can actually go to the website and you can put the bottle number on this bottle, and they will tell you exactly where it comes from, what barrels they use, what percentage, how many different barrels they use to blend into this single bottle. All the whiskies that Bruichladdich does are all single malts. So they don't give any of them to any blends or anything like that. I think they did a collaboration with Compact Box, but that's about it. This one again in particular, so the whiskey, the barrels that they use, and this is what I love about Bruichladdich, is the transparency. They tell you exactly what cask they use. They use Jack Daniels, Four Roses, and there's another whiskey that it's skipping my mind, but it'll come back to me. Buffalo Trace, that's the one. So yeah, incredible, and this is non-peated as well. That's the other thing that Bruichladdich does compared to the rest of Islay. I know that Kaolila does a couple of unpeated versions, but these ones they do the main bottles that they do is completely unpeated, which I find really interesting. So that's the Laddie Classic. Now the next one that the next range that they do, and this is a nod to the farmers in all of Islay, is the Islay Barley, the Bruichladdich Islay Barley. So this is as well by editions. By the way, sorry, all the bottles are actually editions. So this is edition number 5.1, I think it is, and this one is a 2010 edition as well. So they started with 2005, and this is kind of like vintages of the barley. They put on the bottle all the farms that they have used. So I'm not going to name them because I'm terrible at Gaelic and I can't pronounce them. But basically, if you look at the front of the bottle, if you say Islay Barley 2010, it will tell you basically all the farms that they use in Islay. Again, 50% alcohol and peated. Each version varies very much from each other, so I can't tell you this one in particular what flavors you're looking for, but we'll nose a little bit and just go through all of them in particular. Now the next one is a Porsche A Lot. The Porsche A Lot is the version that they use is heavily peated. The ppm is not actually on the bottle, but I'm assuming it's around 40 to 50%. Sorry, ppm. So if you haven't watched any of the previous episodes, ppm is part per million. So it's the phenols inside the whiskey that gives it that smoke. So the more ppm, the more smoky the whiskey is going to be. I'm assuming it's about 40 to 50 because it actually, if you smell it, it actually smells very smoky, but don't quote me on that. This is something that you probably can go to the website and find out yourself, because it's, as I said, they're very transparent. This is one of the only bottles as well that they start putting the age statement. This is a 10-year-old, the Porsche A Lot, and it's actually incredible whiskey. Again, 50% alcohol. You can't go wrong with this whiskey. Now the next one that we're going to try is actually a part of the range as well. This is literally probably my top 5 best whiskies I ever tried. This is called the Bruichladdich Black Arts, and it's a nod as well to basically back in the day, distillers were considered alchemists and almost like witches and sorcerers kind of thing. So the Black Arts is basically a nod to back in the day how distilling can be considered almost like a mystery in itself. This is the version 5.1. Obviously that means that there's 5 versions. It's 24-year-old whiskey. I think the 4.1 is 23 and there's another one 22, so the ages varies. The ABV on this one is 48.4. As you can see, it's a pretty old whiskey, so the ABV it's a little bit lower, but it's incredible. Like if you smell this one, all you can smell is just like chocolate and raisins, and it's absolutely stunning. And this is unpeated as well, so it's an unpeated whiskey, and it's every year they release a different edition, every year or every couple of years, I'm not sure. And then the final one that we're going to try, and this is incredible, and they're the only ones that have been able to produce this and the only ones that does it, is called the Octomore, Bruichladdich Octomore. This is a challenge that I can't remember the year that actually started, but basically they wanted to know how far they can go, how peated they can make a whiskey. They said back in the day, maybe in the early 2000s, they said that you couldn't make a whiskey more than 40-50 ppm because eventually the barley actually saturates with the smoke and it just kills it, so you can't do anything with it. They find a way of going around it. I can't remember exactly the science, you probably can find out for me. But basically what they do is they just try and make it as peaty as possible. This one, and the best part as well, that is what I said about before in Bruichladdich, is the transparency. They tell you everything in the bottle. So this one is the 8.1. I'm pretty sure the current version as of today in this video is 10.1. but the best thing is how much they experiment with this whiskey. It's not only about the ppm, it's not about how smoky there is, but it's just the liberty they take with using casks and barrels. This one is American oak, but they have done Sauterne casks, they have done sherry casks, they have done all sorts of different casks to experiment what the whiskey can do and what the actual phenols and how smoky the whiskey interacts with the wood. This one is aged for 8 years. Usually some of them are 5 years, some of them are 7 years, depending on the version. Some of them goes over to 10 years. Obviously, the more years they spend on the barrel, the less phenolic they're going to be, the less smoky they're going to be. So this one is 167 ppm, if I read this correctly. Yes. So to give you an idea, Lafroig or Lagavulin, they're like about 30 to 40 ppm. So this one is actually almost 4 times that. They have one that they released, I think it was the 7th edition, that it was 320 ppm. They have another ones that got to 69 ppm, which is not too much compared to that, but they're really, 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 really smoky. And the other thing as well is they're a bomb. They're like 59 to 62% alcohol as well. So this is not for the faint of hearted, but it has a massive cult following. And here at Death and Taxes, we sell a lot of these ones. And it's just like, people absolutely love it, and that's why they keep releasing versions. And the bottles are super cool as well. They always come in black, or when they do a Sauterne cast or something a little bit different with a little bit more color, they come in like these classy white bottles that look absolutely amazing. So yeah, 59% alcohol. That's crazy. Now we're gonna try my 2 favorites. First we'll go and try the Bruichladdich Classic. This one, I stayed in the Bruichladdich distillery for about a week, and the best part about that one was every morning, like I would leave the distillery and I would go and just travel around Ireland and all that stuff, and every night that I would come back to the room, I would have a brand new bottle literally sitting on my bedside table, just ready to drink. It was incredible. So literally every day, fresh bottle. So I got a bit accustomed to drink this whiskey. As you can see, it's pretty clear on the glass. First fill bourbon barrels, 7 to 8 years, and then 50%. And peated, and then the first thing that you can smell, obviously from the Islay barley and from being unpeated and created in Islay, is just how grassy and how light this whiskey is. It's actually incredible. Just to refresh as well, just remember that to smell, you don't want to put the nose straight into your glass. You just want to give it a quick smell, and then just give it a swirl, cover try. And then after that, you give it a rating. This 50%, I will give it a 7 to 8, maybe almost 8.5. So then you got your droppers, and then you just put like 8 drops, and then you give it another try. Again, you can taste those grassy aromas, and how good this whiskey can be as well with a little bit of water. The other one that I really want to try is the Black Arts, and this one, the reason why I keep talking about this one is because it's incredible how much the whiskey tastes, because it's basically, they're very similar whiskies. This one is only like 7 to 8 years old, but this is 24 years old, and you see the different in colors, and it's incredible. So there you go. So that's a lot darker, obviously, from a lot more time in the wood, and then 48% alcohol is a lot easier to drink as well. But the chocolate and all the vanilla comes from the American oak. It's actually incredible. Delicious. Well, this is as much as I can tell you about Bruichladdich. Hope you enjoy, and we'll see you in the next episode. Slán Jabá.